Welcome to your Daily 5 for Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. Well, this is going to be a very, very late to the party review because the series has been out for over a year now, at least. But my wife and I finally got around to watching the Apple TV series Severance, starring Adam Scott, which, again, my review is going to seem completely disposable because there are many, many, many reviews talking about how great this series is. And I have to echo them. We both thought it was sensational. Now, I kind of knew I was going to like this series because I saw a lot of comparisons. And there's, in some ways I understand them. In other ways it's a little deceptive. So I will make a distinction here. But there were a lot of people who compared it to a series that I absolutely adored called Devs, which I reviewed. Geez, when did that come out? During the pandemic? I don't even remember now. Yeah, I think it was like 4 years ago, something like that. But when Devs came out, I couldn't shut up, and I still don't shut up about it. I still think it's one of the best series I've ever seen, and I just will keep ranting and raving about it. But I had seen people who said, okay, if you like Devs, you're going to like this. If you like Twin Peaks, you're going to like this. If you like a story that is telling a really effective mystery, but also making some really interesting commentaries, you're going to like this. And it looked beautiful. I mean, right from the beginning, it looked magnificent, that kind of retro futuristic look. The fact that it was dealing with liminal spaces, backrooms type of stuff, where it was this impenetrable office underground where people were, and this isn't even a spoiler, where your brain turns on when you're at work one way and turns on a different way when you're out of work. And so we went into it. My wife, I think, was on the fence. I think she might have thought it was a little bit too weird for her at first. But by the end of, I think, the second episode, she was hooked. I was hooked in 10 minutes. I knew right away that I was geared for this type of thing. And as long as it wasn't a complete wreck in terms of storytelling, that even the visuals would probably carry me through. But I have to say, it is a stellar production top to bottom. So this is one of those cases where the hype and the raves and rants about it are absolutely well-founded. I think Severance is the next Devs for me. It's that level of a series. The only bad thing about it, the only thing I always make sure I mention when I talk about Devs to people is it's a one and done series. And I love the fact that it told a complete story in one shot, and you don't have to worry about whether it's going to be canceled or whether they're going to lose their way in the second season or anything. Whereas with Severance, it ends on a huge cliffhanger, although not as massive a one that people... I was reading about the ending and people were like, that's a terrible way to end the series. And I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I mean, the cliffhanger it ends on, you can see that that's where it's going to end, about 30 miles away. Like, you know where it's going. I'll talk about it when I review it during our show. I don't know if I'm going to get to it this week because I have so much stuff to review because Lando's been off. So I don't know that I'm going to get to it. Just depends on time. But when I talk about it, the cliffhanger ending really didn't bother me all that much. I knew that's where it was going to be. So I think if you watch enough of these shows, you're going to know exactly where this show is going to end itself. But the downside to a cliffhanger ending is, of course, if something were to happen and the show weren't to come back, writer's strike is still going on. Who knows what the nature of streaming will be in a year or two? It is possible, although unlikely. I think Apple will bankroll this no matter what. I think it's one of their biggest hits outside of Ted Lasso. So I really don't think there's going to be any chance it doesn't come back for at least one more season. But it does end on a cliffhanger. So I'm certainly not going to blame anybody to wait to watch it. But I will say, it is an exceptionally well-done series. Acting, the production design, the look of this thing, and some of the music and the way things are shot is just gorgeous. Ben Stiller directed, I think, almost, well, maybe not all of them, but he directed a good number of them. He's kind of the mind behind this. And I mean, I like this better than, honestly, any of his comedies. If there's one thing Ben Stiller will be remembered for by me anyway, it's probably going to be this, and, if he does more like this afterwards. But you could toss all his comedies in the garbage, and I would still love him for this, because this is fantastic. So, yes, again, you've heard all this probably if you've heard any reviews for Severance, unless you've heard a bad one. But if you've heard any good ones, this is going to be very familiar territory. I know I'm coming to this show extremely late, but I really wanted to watch it with my wife, so I waited. And I'm kind of glad I did, because we watched it at just the right time. We had a nice bank of time to be able to just run through it over the course of 3 or 4 days because we were really hooked. And it was just fantastic. There's no other word for it. I really liked it. I'm looking forward to season 2. I hope they can keep the momentum of it going. I kind of feel like they will, unless there's some kind of big shakeup. But I mean, it is always a risk. But this is one of those shows where I'm more confident in it going forward than I would be with other ones. So again, Severance, season 1, excellent. If you haven't watched it, you might want to because it's good. Later.